You're listening to the Around the Lens podcast, the home of high-quality, roundtable, visual journalism discussion about the news, topics, and gear related to our career field. Now, here's the host of our show, David J. Murphy.
Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 252. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me this week are Zach Roberts and Mark Doyle. Guys, how you doing?
How are you, David?
I'm doing great. As you might notice, we're not, the guys aren't here with me in the studio. Zach isn't on the big screen behind me. That's because I couldn't get anybody in the studio. Darn it. I tried. I really did try for you all. But I know it's a work in progress. But, I had a decision to make. Do I not do a show because I can't get anyone in person? Or do I do a show because it's been 2 weeks and I want to talk about visual information and photography and photojournalism and filmmaking, all that fun stuff. I decided to do something to, hey, let's do it old school, huh? Anyways, so hopefully we'll have some folks in after Thanksgiving, working on some stuff. Haven't given up yet, but, we'll see how it goes. Gotta get Zach in here now that he's in Virginia. Gotta get him up here to Maryland. Just a hop, skip, and a jump, buddy.
I'm on the other side of the everything. Because I'm in Hampton Roads and or I'm in Norfolk, and so it actually may still be like 4.5 hours to your place because of the way you need to go and everything like that. But still, at least it's. I guess it's still closer. It's closer than you were, 6 months ago, a year ago?
It's closer than upstate New York, I think, but not by much.
It's closer than South Korea. That's what I'm saying.
Indeed. It's
much
closer than a year ago.
You don't have to take a 13 to 14 hour flight and then quarantine for 2 weeks to see me. You can just
true.
Make the effort to come up here. Or I can make the effort to come down there. It's not Norfolk isn't too far away. Maybe I'll come down to see you.
It's a nice town. I got lots of space.
Great. I can see opportunities to do the show over there. Is there a table? Is there a table we could do the show at?
I got a folding table. I got a folding table right now, and my other chair is a camping chair. So
nice. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna come down there and we're gonna do Around the Lens cribs. And I'm gonna be like the videographer and come to your door, and you're gonna be like, "Yo, what's up? Welcome to my crib, AtL," and then take me around.
I don't think I'll be doing that phrasing. I'm just saying. Yeah.
AtL
I'll
cribs?
still say, hello, welcome to my crib. But I won't say it, yo, welcome. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Yo, what's up? It's Zach D in the house.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No, not that.
I tried internet. All right. Well, despite the fact that I don't have anybody here, the show's format is still the same with regard to the new style we're doing, which is more casual, more conversational, and also more showcasey. So again, we're going to look at some stuff that Mark has produced. We're going to look at some stuff that Zach has produced. And, again, if you're listening to this as an audio podcast, great. Glad to have you. But don't hesitate to go on to youtube.com/Around the Lens and go watch the actual video. We've got our episode from last week with Matt Callahan up right now, and you can watch his bright shiny face as he discusses his work with me, and we talk about his work and show it on the big screen, as well as Zach's awesome work from his Trumpian event. So definitely some great stuff there. But let's get into what I would like to talk about this week. And I'm going to throw it right over to Zach. Zach, you brought up a very interesting topic about street photography. And so why don't you go ahead and introduce it, and then we'll chit chat about it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, there's a great piece over at, I'm trying to remember where I found it first. It's bulletin.com. Dina Litovsky has a piece called The Sticky Issue of Consent in Street Photography, how a lovely family became an internet controversy. There's an image, if you scroll down a little bit, that at least I saw it all over the place, kind of a viral photo. And more than the piece itself, because there's a really good discussion around it, but basically I have become even as a photojournalist, I become more turned off from street photography than I used to be. Then even like I was vaguely uncomfortable when I did it back in the day. Like
Right.
I like taking photos of streets and things like that, but not like people. Like my like one thing my art photo teacher back when I was at Syracuse University would always said, we're like, where are there people? Why are there no people in your photos? And I'm like, I don't really like them, but like I don't like and you know, as a like as an introvert and photojournalism has always been a way for me to like actually talk to people and do things. But the thing I don't necessarily always like about street photography is, again, is kind of the voyeur like kind of feel of it. And like, this is a gorgeous photo. Like, if it was an art photo, it's you know, it has a Renaissance feel. It has like kind of everything perfect about, like, if this was posed, this is a great photo as well.
You
like,
could never pose. You could never pose it this well, not with those two kids. I mean, I can't even pose my own kids.
Yeah. But like, she's got like the little kid's got the finger thing going out. Like, it's very like Michelangelo or something like that. But that said, you're taking a photo of a moment of a very, even though like New York City, like there's no private moments in New York City. Like there is no place, like there's the kind of a ongoing joke with New York City residents where it's just like, where's your favorite place to go cry? and like, because it's like there is no private movie, everybody has roommates, everybody has whatever, like, and so like everybody kind of has a place where you're like, okay, I can go and be alone for a brief moment, and it's just like, give it 5 minutes and there'll be somebody walking by, there'll be somebody trying to do, you know, try to start a conversation with you, everything, whatever it is, you know, whatever it is, like trying to hand you pamphlets, trying to sell you a, you know, a Greenpeace membership or something like that.
Right.
Always something. And it's just like, I'm super happy to be out of the city for that reason. But just because, but it's one of these, you know, moments. And so often I think I mean, mind you, there's some that don't, some that do. But like, so often it's women that are also within the gaze of the street photographer's eye. The fact, you know, I mean, the fact that, you know, photos like street photography is kind of inherently done without any sort of consent. They're only really interesting if they're kind of on the level of an embarrassing moment, or just kind of a but often they're like, I mean, very clearly this woman here has had a day. Like, she's got 2 kids that, you know, one's barefoot. I mean, there's just so many, like, and also thanks to internet culture as being vile as it is, I would bet, I mean, I personally haven't seen, because I saw this photo being discussed amongst like other photographers on Twitter. But I mean, like, one of the other problems too is that, like, I'll bet you can take 5 minutes to do a Google reverse image search on this, and somebody's commenting about the fact that the kid doesn't have shoes on in the subway, and the fact that this is at this and that or whatever. And and so it's just there, it brings up a whole kind of realm of like, what do you want to put people through when you're taking your photography? And I have the, like, personally, I have the kind of almost comfortability of, like, the people I take photos of for the most part are often Nazis and white supremacists and white nationalists, and
they deserve it.
And like, I'm like the outing and the kind of, but still at that same time, I don't try to make them look bad. Like, I don't take the photo of them looking weird. I don't purposely try to shoot up or, you know, give them the 3 chins or whatever that you can kind of do. If you're, you know, any good photographer can, it's almost easier to make a person look bad as a photographer than it is them to make look good. You know, I mean, and so, like, it's just kind of that kind of discussion that I think that, especially when it involves children, that I think we need to have more of a conversation of, like, years ago. I'm trying to remember how long ago I interviewed for Around the Lens. I interviewed his Twitter account is at Duck Rabbit blog, and they're continually having this discussion about, like, the fact that, like, so many famous Magnum photographers continually will use children, especially children within, like, that are being used, that are basically sex slaves. And like those are often the award-winning images, or there's this large environmental, it won a bunch of awards in Europe that were in these environmental activism photos, basically, that had these children of color who were laying in the middle of like places that were affected by climate change, and it was very clearly set up, but it still won a photojournalism award. And
Right.
so there's this like ongoing discussion within at least parts of the photojournalism world, and that maybe using children in a lot of way in these photos for your either street photography or your making a statement photography isn't really a great thing, and that there's a lot of exploitation, unknowing on one side for the most part, but like on the side of like people's, as photographers, using kids to basically win awards or just get Instagram attention or whatever. And it's just all feels icky.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that if I could.
I definitely want to get your thoughts on this, Mark, as well. But I just want to clarify what your issue is, Zach.
Mhm.
So, is your issue with 1, street photography, 2, street photography of people in embarrassing situations, 3, street photography of children, or is it all 3? Like, where is your major sort of issue with not only the photo but the sort of concept?
I mean, it's more of like, because one of the big problems is that sometimes there's a incredible photo. It doesn't have to, you can make incredible photos, incredible street photography without like showing a person's face, showing whatever, just doing certain things. It's more about I know this article like specifically kind of tries to walk around the idea, like, let's not have this conversation of ethics, but a conversation of, being, respectful. And so it's more around kind of just the idea of the exploitative nature of street photography, and how often the most famous ones, at least, whether it's a fault of the photographer or not, like you could have just gotten this as a great photo and sent it to a friend and been like, oh, isn't this just a great photo? And then that friend shares it somewhere and then it goes viral. Like there's so many of these types of images that just don't go viral, not through the fault of the photographer, like by trying to promote it or whatever, but still even taking the image, like, as opposed to just seeing it and, I don't know, not living in the moment, but
Okay, so it sounds like it's an issue, a fundamental issue with the genre itself. Then, okay, well, let me throw it over to you, Mark. What are your thoughts?
How it can be. I'm not saying it's the genre, but how it can go.
Okay, about how people can interpret the genre.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's interesting because, like, I've done, as David knows, I've done lots of different kind of photography over my career, and I did have a short tenure with a website called New York Natives, and I was hired to do some street photography, to capture images with my point and shoot, which is what I've been taking around with me, and trying to capture some cool New York moments. And that photo that you just showed, it's funny because I have a lot of photos myself of people on the subway, which is what that shot shows.
Yeah.
And one of the shots that I had taken, there were two particular shots that they ended up using, and they were basically publishing one image, and it was really just a little caption. It wasn't a story about the image itself. It was a caption, and it was part of this thing that they wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had taken one image of a woman. I wish I had it. I would have sent it to David. I didn't realize that image was going to pop up there. Of a woman sitting up on the train, just like that woman was sitting there with her girlfriend. I'm assuming it was a girlfriend. It could have been a friend, laying in her lap. And I had taken that photo, and it was a black and white shot. I'd taken the photo. She's just laying in her lap, kind of, whether she was sick or not feeling well or whatever. And I had taken the shot, and I thought it was an interesting shot. It was right in front of me, and I was like, wow, this would be a cool shot to send them. So I took the shot and sent it to them, and along with a bunch of other shots that I had taken that week, and that was the one they had used. I think that, like, the thing about it is, when you go back to like some of the early photographers like Robert Frank, who would do a lot of that street stuff, and sort of out kind of like trying to figure out like what the world was really about, and it wasn't really like exploiting people. It was more about feeling out the world that we live in. And I don't have a problem with street photography when the photographer is reaching out in that way, where they're actually trying to feel out what the world is about, what the world is saying, what people are thinking and feeling at this moment. I do have a problem when services sometimes will publish that to try and get to try and create controversy. And I think that's the big deal. I think the big deal is how much controversy, because at the end of the day, these newspapers and magazines and so on, you want as many eyeballs on their publication as they can get. So the real, I think they forego the artistic integrity of the photo to create that controversy. Now that photo is a very, very, really well done, well taken photo. So as it stands alone as a photo, as far as I'm concerned, is a beautiful picture. You know what I mean? But what goes beyond that, how it's portrayed and how the media is trying to push that in a negative light is where I have a problem with photojournalism. It just personally, that's because it can be manipulated in that way where it takes away from the integrity of the photo and what the intention of the photographer was trying to do. Sometimes that doesn't match up. That's the problem I have, that it doesn't match up necessarily, with the intention of the photographer and the intention of the publication that's actually trying to get that out.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, basically kind of like what I think that no matter kind of what genre of photography we're in, what we need to kind of realize is that we're in 2021. We're not in Robert Frank's era. We're not in Bresson's era. We're in this era. And the fact that we take an image, and I mean, like, it's kind of a joke. I mean, like when my kid sister, she's 21, got her first cell phone, I just hammered it in her head. If you take a photo with your phone, consider it's on the internet.
Right.
Just even if you never publish it, if it goes nowhere, just consider every single time you take a photo, that photo is going to be seen by everyone. And like, it's unfortunate. It is terrible. It's disgusting, but it's one of those like, and it's not a shame. It's, not me trying to shame it. You take whatever photos you want, but just realize that like, because of the world, the terrible, like, because basically the internet is terrible. At least
people are terrible. I mean, it's the internet's just a mechanism by which people communicate.
I mean, that could be a longer discussion about, the difference between, opioids and fentanyl. The internet is fentanyl. Like it just makes everything worse. But there's a big difference between the virality and like the way things get used, the fact that photos immediately become memes and turn into something else. And I think that as photographers, we need to, maybe it doesn't influence you, maybe it doesn't change you, but you have to live in the world where that world exists. You're not Robert. You don't get to be Robert Frank, unfortunately. You don't get to live in that era of film where the only versions of those photos that are made are the ones that likely you made and then printed and then put on a wall in a museum, in a gallery somewhere. It is once you upload something up to Instagram or do whatever, is that the internet owns that image now, not legally, obviously, but that internet has possession of that image, and everything will go from there. And people, the fact that the big difference of, maybe if you're lucky, 10,000 people going to a gallery show over 6 months, 10,000 people see that photo like that. And the fact also you're getting a completely and totally different group of people seeing it than just your art friends. You're getting everyone who doesn't understand. You don't understand why that image is a gorgeous image and why it's good. You just get everyone from, perverts looking at feet on the internet, and not to kink shame, but and to, you know, to art scholars, and you get everything in between. And it's just something that I think that we have to think about as photographers when we publish and when we do things, is especially now that we're publishers and we're not, you know, most photographers are their own publishers at this point, whether they think that way or not. Even the wire photographer is the one that uploads those photos and publishes them to the internet, and then anyone can buy them, you know. And so it's just something I think that we need to, you know, think about and have more conversations about, because it basically just gets down to, oh, well, it's a free speech issue. I can publish anything. You're in a public place, and and it's just like, I used to be that way. I used to be a lot more that way. And I've realized is that I don't think that there's a lot of fights that we don't need to fight. And to me, that's one of the, and it just makes an already hated, like, journalists. I mean, like, the number of times I get called paparazzi, no matter where I am, in a million ways, just because I'm taking photos of something that's happening. And the amount of hatred that you get, you know, I mean, I just had two friends that were attacked at different rallies, and it's just one of those, it's like, we constantly, I think we also have to be vaguely aware of the world that we live in, especially the past five or 6 years, if you know what I mean, about what, if you're working as a photojournalist, and what both sides, if you want to say both sides, but both sides kind of like look at our world. And, you know, I don't.
Mark, you mentioned the media in your comments, and I just wanted to kind of you to clarify that. What is it about this image or the way it's represented that you think the media is at fault with pushing something? Like, again, I mean, they're just, this particular story is just publishing the photo and using it as a point of discussion, similar to how we are. Are you talking about like the media in general, like in the way they take any image? What's sort of your argument there about media?
I've done research on a lot of this stuff over the years, you know, with regards to, you know, looking at some images that photojournalists take, how some of those images are often manipulated in post-production, and how they're creating, you know, a different meaning. You know, okay. The narrative in which a media outlet can change with an image is just incredible. It's incredible, because what people don't realize is, you know, what sometimes happens is the image that we're taking, that like a person like Zach is taking, you know, can be misconstrued. You know, it could be the angle that Zach is, you know, you know, every photo that you take, you know, the meaning of that photo changes from one angle to the next, from one lighting style to the next. So the meaning of that photo changes, the meaning of that particular capture changes just by going to the left or to the right, or going behind somebody, or in the case of photojournalism, standing in this position as opposed to this position. The gun looks like it's pointing at this person, but it's really pointing at that person. The perspective of photography, particularly in photojournalism, is very, very easily could be easily manipulated, whether it's in a post-production situation or it's in a photography situation, where a photographer is conscious that that image that they take from this angle is going to change the narrative of the story that's actually occurring and unfolding right in front of them. And there's no doubt that you can make that argument with any photographer that's out there. You know, myself being a professional photographer, I can go and say, well, if I stand here and I see this is, you know, this is a peaceful protest, but if I go here and I get this shot from this angle, that's going to change. That photo is now not going to be it look like a peaceful protest is occurring. So there's a lot of manipulation that's done, not just in post-production, but also in the angles in which the photographers choose when they're out there in the field.
Yeah. Okay. I want to throw it back to you, Zach. I want to clarify what you were saying. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that consent, context, and permission needs to be inherent in every photo you're taking, or it needs to be a part of the photos you're taking before you feel comfortable.
It needs to be the conversation that you're having. Every photographer gets to make their own choices on what they do. I'm not, right. I'm not trying to put down some dictum.
I'm talking about your personal beliefs, because you've said it's changed over time. And
I think that there's to me, there's a dramatic difference between, like, I mean, especially most of what I almost always, I'm trying to think of any time that I may not have, like, if I cover if I'm, as a photojournalist, the type of work that I do is either I'm going into somebody's home who let me in, or I'm going to a rally or something that is in a public place that is specifically designed to create media, press, and that sort of thing, and then covering those stories. And so for me, I mean, obviously it's a lot easier for me. Like, those choices are pretty simple. Is that if you're 99.9% of the time, if you're in front of my camera lens, you're in a public place, at least, in the context, whatever, even if it's in a stadium or something like that, you're in a area that is known. It's basically the kind of like, how, like, if you're in an area that's filming it for a movie, and you have that sign on like the street pole that says, if you come into this area, there's a good chance. There's already an inherent moment of consent. That said, do I still, if there's a child or something like that, that's at a rally, whatever, do I still try to at least get eye contact of the parent? I often try to do that. And just like basically while I'm taking the photo, like, I'm looking for eye contact, and I'm looking and reading a moment, unless it's an important photo, unless something's going on. If I'm just taking a photo of like a little kid holding a sign or whatever, it's not that, it's that moment. It's not like it's the groundbreaking moment. It's not, someone be attacking. There's no Pulitzer there. There's no no news like worthiness necessarily of that photo, other than it's an illustrative point of the day. And so there's like just things that I'm constantly thinking about when I'm taking those photos, that I think that we should be having. Obviously, we're talking about street photography in the light of photojournalism. Sure. Obviously, I think that a lot of street photographers would argue this is not photojournalism. It's more of an art than it is a journalism. Yeah. I think a lot of people would. That said, the next step of publishing and doing whatever, if you're just taking these photos and you're like, okay, even if you're just like, oh, I only doing a gallery show or something like that. But the moment you put things on the internet, I just think that it's something that we need to have that conversation about, is that you realize you release it out there. And even if you add a caption, even if you somehow put the caption into the EXIF data or whatever, and it's there, that image is out in the world, and that it's immediately going to be used by people for different reasons. And also, especially since, so many of these images don't have any sort of consent, you're putting those people, you're not just putting that photo out there, you're putting those people out there for that moment. And so it's just one of those, like, I don't know what my opinion is necessarily on it. Again, I'm very happy that I'm comfortable not doing street photography. Whether would I take that photo?
You might take it, but would you publish it? That's the thing, right? That you might take it, but you wouldn't publish it.
Often what I'll do, if I see like a really nice moment, and like, again, I don't know, who knows whether that mother thinks that's a nice moment. I take a lot of nice moments of like, when my family goes out on vacation, I think what are really nice photos, and then I show them to my mom, and she's like, oh my God, I look terrible, and don't ever publish that photo. And that mom could think that, or that mom could go, oh my God, this is like this great moment of like family and everything like that. And like, what I'll do a lot of times, if I do randomly take that photo, because again, it's never my like intent to go out and take, street photography of that type of thing, of people's faces specifically. I like silhouettes, and it's a different type of thing, but I will often go up to that person and go, do you want me to send you this photo? I took this photo. Because like, also I'd want to give this photo to her. Like, that would be, if I took this photo, it's a great photo, it's whatever. I would, right before I leave or whatever, I go, I took this photo, I'll delete it if you want, or I'll never use anything with it. But like, I thought it was a really great moment. Do you want me to send it to you? Here's my card, shoot me an email. That's what that's the conversation now.
I don't think that's the case with that photo. I don't think it's the case with that particular photo with the two little girls, with the mother. But I think it's a great photo. I really think it's an amazing photo. There's something artistic about it. There's something painterly about that photo. Yeah. And if I took that shot, I probably would have posted it. But again, it does take on a different meaning, to your point. if it's out there, and
Right.
it could be manipulated or it could be misinterpreted in some way.
But isn't that true of
uh,
any image?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. But I mean, I think as a photographer, I'm not looking at it that way personally. I'm looking at taking a really great photo of a person or a subject or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily thinking about how that's going to be used or abused.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I'm naive in that way. I don't know. But I mean, I feel that, maybe because I don't do as much photojournalism or that kind of street photography, but when I am doing that kind of work, I don't, I'm not thinking, I think I'm looking at like, where is the best photo going to come from? Where is it,
Yeah.
at that moment? And, I guess sometimes, once you post it, to Zach's point, it's out there for everyone to manipulate and criticize and
Meme.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, meme, exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify your point then, Zach. Your sort of stance is, the line is that there is a understood aura of consent because the photography you're taking is at an event, whether that be in a stadium or at a protest. That like the people out there understand they're going to be photographed, and you as a photographer know that they understand they're going to be photographed. So there's that implied consent because it is event centric, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
So then how do you, and again, getting off necessarily street photography, right? Because even in the photojournalism industry, we have, what's called feature hunting, right? Where you're going out, you're, back in the newspaper days, your editor would tell you, go find me some nice feature photos, and you'd go to the park or you'd go walk the street. You try and find those nice found moments. Now, typically, like if you're a good photojournalist, you go up to the person after you've taken their photo and get their name and information for caption information. They understand they're going to have their picture printed, right? So very rarely are you necessarily publishing the photo without their consent, because ultimately, they might call the paper and be like, why are you publishing my photo? What is the newsworthy value of you publishing a photo of me playing in, the park, with a sprinkler, right? So it's difficult for me, right, to kind of take your side or take, anyone's side to the degree of, not, saying like, hey, don't photograph found things or don't publish them. It'd be only because, and I just want to make sure I'm, Mark, you're not a father, right? Are you have any kids yourself? I just want to make sure if I'm the only father.
Yeah, no,
here.
I do.
You do? Okay.
I just looking to do some of my newspaper stuff that I've shot. So.
Okay, so I mean, you can chime in on this as well, but from my perspective as a father, looking at this, if would I want my photograph taken where I'm in a, dealing with I'm at my wit's end trying to deal with my two kids, would I want my picture taken in the subway when I'm, maybe not at best with my kids around me? And no, I wouldn't want my picture taken. I would feel it's an invasion of privacy, but I would defend the right of any photographer to take it and publish it in a non-commercial manner, because that's just, my background, right? It's like, at the end of the day, I think if we go towards, again, it's up to every individual person's comfort level, right? No one's forcing anyone not to or do something, but I fear a general wave of sentiment that, how do I say, goes towards the narrative of restriction, because it can end up in things like in Korea. So in Korea, there is very strict laws about publishing photographs of people who don't give their consent. You see it all the time. If you watch like Korean news, everyone's faces are blurred. So you end up seeing like crowd shots that are 90% blur because they're not allowed to publish photos or video of people without their consent. And so again, I fear that being sort of a mindset that I don't want that, here in, America. And as long as you're in public, you're consenting to the world, essentially, that you are putting yourself out there in view of the public and the millions of security cameras and every other camera that films you. So it's difficult for me to,
I mean, go ahead, Zach.
But
so quickly, I mean, what I would say is that that sentiment is building amongst the public quite a bit. And to me, I know that most photojournalists don't share this, but to me is that we live right now. I don't think that, at least certainly within my my 40 years, I don't remember a time when journalists and like very much photojournalists were hated so much, and that our entire genre, entire like field was reviled to quite a bit, on both, quite a bit on both, in a lot of ways, and both sides and that sort of thing. And I think that because we as a field are not dealing with the realities of 2021 and what happens when we take images, when we do things, when things go viral, when things happen, is that we're the originators. Whether it's our fault or not, I don't know. Whether or not we should, if we don't want to change, then we should, you don't change. But I think that we need to have some consideration in the fact that the world is changing, whether or not we like it or not, and that we need to evolve in the best way that we can to keep our industry as safe as it can, not only from being completely chiseled away like it already kind of has been, but also from not just automatic always being, run out of places and being, and that sort of thing. I mean, the general sentiment on the left and the right is they don't want photojournalist places, and we have this real big problem that we have to come to terms with, is if we want to keep our industry, if we want to keep journalism, photojournalism, visual journalism alive, that we need to start making, I think, more considered choices on what we do and how we do things. And because we also, even though we don't make things go viral, we don't manipulate, I hope, for the most part, manipulate things, we have to know that I hold back things. I 100% of it, I've said it a million times on the show, I hold back video clips that I know that will be taken out of context if I'm filming something. And I know, because I know the perpetrators, I know the people that are on social media that will immediately grab that image or grab that video and make it go viral because they'll add a different caption and put something else on it. And unfortunately, I don't know how to stop that, because I got 14,000, almost 14,000 followers on Twitter. There's 7 accounts that have more followers than most cable news shows have viewers, and they will take those video clips of somebody hitting over a trash can, doing different things at protest, and make that go viral. And there's a really good potential that the person that's in that video, they'll figure out who it is in 10 minutes, and that person's going to get a knock on their door by some fascist. And these are considerations that I have to take continually, and that I hope more photojournalists at least put it in their head, knowing that they do this, because we don't live in the heyday of journalism where you just publish what's right, and and the public will read it and consume it, and that's what it is. We don't live in that day, and it's not coming back as long as the internet exists, and it's gone. And there's a lot of people in our industry that just refuse to admit that they don't live in the age that never really existed, because that age never really existed. There was always people that would take images, manipulate them, even just by changing the caption or whatever, and that's it. The difference is that it's now on hyperbaric steroids, and it just goes immediately viral in the worst way possible. And it doesn't matter what the truth is. I've had images of mine go that way before, and no one knows. The other problem too is that no one knows when they see that image in 2 years on somebody else's website, on somebody else's blog, or on an Instagram page, or on a Twitter feed. They can figure out it was my photo or somebody else's photo, but they can't figure out that I didn't write that caption. I didn't do that. And so I know a lot of photojournalists who end up getting hate. I mean, look at, I published this stuff to the Wire service, and then Glenn Greenwald decided to pull it down for his blog and post it or whatever, a Substack, and then it goes viral from there, and it goes into the internet hate machine. Right. And so, and obviously this is,
and also, and then recaptioned, essentially. Yeah. So you feel, Zach, that a lot of photojournalists now are targets for
we are. I mean, I get, especially if we try to be safe, I can't wear a mask at a rally, at a lot of rallies that I cover now, because I'm immediately targeted. And I was at a rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with like 100 people, and I was the only, I think there was one other journalist there. And I had my camera set up and everything like that. And like the entire speech, every person was just pointing right at me and being like, the media. They have no idea who I am. They
Right,
don't know.
sure.
They don't
Yeah.
know if I'm right, if I'm left, if I'm CNN or whatever. I mean, they always assume you're CNN, right? And I go,
Yeah.
no.
I mean, that was that was perpetrated by our former president Trump, who, you know, vilified the media and carried
millions
on,
of
and
people happily went along with it.
yeah, because they
Yeah.
wanted
And
to.
that's-
Because
I mean, that's
they
the thing. We
want,
can blame
everybody wants
Trump
an
as much
enemy,
as we want,
right?
but,
And
like
the media makes it easy target, right? Because we
Yep.
can always, oh, they're going online and they're publishing my photo and they're making me look bad on internet,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So let me throw it back to you, Mark, really quick. I want to just check with you. You're a father, you have kids.
Yeah.
Does that impact, or, you know, either this image or your just overall idea of how you see images of children being photographed? Like, do you have that sort of same guttural, I guess, instinct to, you know, not want to publish photos of, you know, children because of that fatherhood, you know, similar, like, you know, Zach has that feeling, you know, just because obviously we don't want to exploit children in general, but, you know, as a father, does that factor in at all? Like, does you know, your desire to or not photograph children have any, you know, impact because you're a father?
I mean, that's a good question, because I've crossed that bridge on a couple of occasions where, you know, I'm in a setting where, you know, I take a really good shot of a very young kid, and it's a great shot, and I'm hesitant, and I have been hesitant. In fact, one time I took a shot and I posted it up. It was a close shot of a young girl or whatever it was, and I posted it up, and I took it right down. I literally took it right down because
It's still there on the internet because you posted
what's
it.
that?
It's still
Yeah,
on the
because I
internet because you posted it, right? The internet
because
owns it now.
yeah, exactly, right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely because, you know, it's in your head, like Zach is saying, it's automatically, it's there, you know, it's
Yeah.
part of what we do as far as grabbing images, and you know, if there's a moment like this particular photo, I think is beautiful, and it's something that, you know, maybe I would post if I took it, but there's definitely, you know, I think it's a case by case basis, really. I don't think you completely shut it down. I
Mhm.
think you look at it and you say, well, you know, that's not serving anyone's interest, you know, or that's going to, you know, you have to think, like Zach's saying, where is this going to end up? And I don't think there's any way to really prevent it. I really don't. I mean, it's the only way to prevent it is just not take it or
Yeah.
not post it, because, you know, if you take a photo today and, like Zach's saying, you put, you know, happy family, you know, in caravan, and
Yeah.
then 6 months later, you know, that same photo has a completely different caption, and it turns into a completely different meaning. I mean,
Yeah.
not everyone's looking, you know, at that particular photo from the day it was posted with this really cheery caption on it.
Yeah,
Now they
yeah.
might be seeing it, you know, 6 months later, on you know, on a right wing, you know, website or something. I don't, you know, whatever
Yeah.
the case is. So there's not only is there photo manipulation, but obviously caption. So it's very hard to kind of, you know, decipher like what you should post, what you shouldn't post, what you should shoot, what you shouldn't shoot. You know, I'm looking at it more from an artistic point of view, more like, you know, if I see, you know, if I think that that's going to be a nice image, then I'm going to take it and sort of like look at it, and then sort of think about what, you know,
Yeah.
if I'm going to publish it or not, or how I'm going to publish it. I think you definitely I think in to Zach's point, in today's day and age, you know, from his perspective of actually being a photojournalist and actually making a living that way, you have to, you know, you have to really think these things out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope. It really is.
Well, you know, we're obviously getting into the realm of consent, right? And we've talked about consent on this show many, many times. And what my general sort of feeling is, and I think I've probably expressed it before, right, is, you know, don't let permission get in the way of capturing, but when in all cases, if possible, get that buy-in, get that consent, you know, But I'd hate for a world where these type of images didn't exist, if only because if we look back in the world of, if you look at the 100 best photos of the year or 1,000 best photos of the century or whatever, I would say probably the majority of those are those very, captured moments, right? They aren't scripted, they aren't planned. The person doesn't know they're being photographed, and they lead to these wonderful, expressive, memorable photos. But, and I would tell anyone who would have asked me, always take the picture, try and get the consent afterwards. But at the end of the day, and again, it's different for everybody, I wouldn't let, if it's in public, I wouldn't let the consent stop me from publishing a really great photo, because in my opinion, the world is better off for having had that photo exist. And I would be remiss if I thought of, all the wonderful, great, beautiful moments, as long as they're not, I try not to, I wouldn't say go exploitative, but, don't be exploitative. But again, the wonderful moments that would be missed if, we didn't have this sort of inherent need and desire to capture sort of found imagery, found moments. So again, like you said, Zach, it's individual for everybody. We all have to be aware and cognizant of how our images are going to be received online. And I think any, photojournalist worth their salt should be cognizant of that and understand the ramifications. Like, okay, you're going to publish this photo. You did not get consent. You need to understand what you're doing will have a direct impact potentially on this person and their livelihood. Are you ready to make that call and have your name attached to that decision? And if you're okay with that, that is an individual decision. It should be factored in, but shouldn't be blanket necessarily, in my opinion. Don't do something because it has to be factored in, right? So, all right, let's move on to something a little bit lighter. It's Thanksgiving tomorrow, right?
Yes,
everybody got Thanksgiving plans. What are you doing, Zach, for Thanksgiving?
My friend's family lives down the street, and so I'm just going over there. They got everything, like surprisingly, like my mother, I don't know if this is like a growing thing, but got everything like catered. I mean, they just went to a restaurant and got, platters basically. And so it's actually going to be a really nice thing. I'm like, the only thing, I'm just making extra mashed potatoes, just mainly because of me, because I know I'll at least have, 4 servings or whatever. It's my favorite part of Thanksgiving. But it was very dangerous once I figured out, I'm like, I can just make mashed potatoes anytime.
Good. Well, I'm glad you got someplace to go and somewhere you're nearby. Otherwise I'd be like, come on up, come over to the house. You're welcome to. You can crash over here at our pad and have dinner with us. We're going to do dinner. Just going to make it in the house. We've done it for the last few years, and we'll just cook up a turkey and a few side dishes. We're not going to go 16 different side dishes because that's just overkill, but we'll do a couple side dishes and some turkey because we know we'll be eating it for the next week or so. How about you, Mark? Any Thanksgiving plans?
Well, being a divorced dad, my ex-wife has my kids this year, although they're older, they're 21 and 17, so they can kind of do whatever they really want. But, in an effort to keep peace, she'll take them this year because I had them last year. Okay. And my girlfriend's coming over from Pennsylvania, and I'm making a small little turkey and some mashed potatoes, stuffing, and some turnips because I love turnips. The only time I eat them is during this time of year. Yeah. So, and I love those turnips. And nice, quiet, romantic night. Watch a couple movies afterwards, or maybe go right next door to one of my friends for some drinks and dessert, and then walk right back to the apartment and watch a movie and go to sleep. That's it. That's it. That's going to be the whole weekend starting tomorrow.
Hey, there you go.
Really forward to that. Yeah.
Hey, whatever it takes to enjoy yourself. We're probably gonna go. We'll do Thanksgiving, then we're going up to Sesame Place up in Pennsylvania. Yeah, which is about 2.5 hours away. So we're gonna take the kids there, and so it should be a nice little treat for them. And then beyond that, we have no other plans. So we'll probably maybe visit Philadelphia. I was going to say also, Mark, if you didn't have anything planned, come on down to the Murphy house down in Maryland. Everybody's welcome.
I was actually going to head up. My girlfriend does live in Delaware Water Gap by the Poconos, so that's not terribly far from where we're probably going to be. Yeah.
Come on down. Well, with Thanksgiving, obviously comes Black Friday, and Black Friday is kind of really lost its meaning in this day and age because everybody's doing these early Black Friday deals, and it just molds into Cyber Monday. I mean, literally the whole month feels like
Internet.
Black Friday.
Internet.
I know, right? It's kind of, yeah, the
Shopping
idea,
online.
yeah, the
Ruined
idea,
everything,
the internet's ruined everything,
including Black Friday.
Exactly. Yeah. So the idea of kind of crowding at your store and getting in there for the doorbuster deals is kind of a moot point. But are there any Black Friday deals you've seen that relate to, your line of work? Like whether that be like a camera, a lens, a memory card, whatever, maybe that has something to do with either, again, whether it be straight photography or maybe something related to what you're doing.
Well, the one thing I was waiting for, and I'm still waiting for and hoping for, is that Polaroid is going to come out with a deal on their, on their film, on their iType film, because the Polaroid film is expensive, man. So I'm hoping they come down in price a little bit, so I could buy a 5-pack for under $80, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm basically looking for right now. So I'm gonna wait till Cyber Monday. I was gonna buy it on Wednesday. I was like, no, I don't wait till Monday and see what happens. But
Yeah.
that's about it. That's what I've been looking for right now. I don't know if there's any really great camera deals out there.
Yeah. Anything in your world, Zach?
Adobe, which I wish that they let you cancel and then just restart again, because Adobe has I have to have the entire suite because I use like just enough of like everything that it just does never make sense to just get like one and one or whatever. But they're having a 40% off for I think for at least for a year, I think it is. Off of the full suite, so it's only $29, only in quotes, but like that's considering it's $54.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
No, believe me, I really could
just keep track of when that cancellation date comes around, because otherwise
here's always the
year.
secret, everyone. Threaten to cancel, and they often this is like a known thing, but like they often give you 2 free months because I moving and everything like that. I've just been like, literally yesterday I got the like, hey, your card didn't go through notification. I'm like, maybe I can cancel it and then just start with the $29 because that'd be fantastic. But
we use one of those burner card services that they offer, where it basically creates a one-time use credit card, and you basically just give them that, and that way when if you don't want to it for a year and they go to renew, they can't debit another year. So
you got to have another burner email though. That's the problem, is that
I mean, a lot of they have services that are free that provide it. Some banks even provide it, so it's not even something you have to like, you're not like scamming anybody. You're just it's a service that is out there. I did the Black Friday deal with Adobe many years ago and got like roped into another 2 years of it because I forgot 1 year. I thought it carried on past 1 year. I didn't realize it was a 1 year thing. So like 2 years in, I'm like looking at my bill and I'm like, what? $60 a month, $600? What? And then I went to go cancel it because I'd already started the third year. I had to keep it going, or I suffered a cancellation fee. So I'm like, Adobe. And after that, I never went back. And I wouldn't be using Adobe today if it weren't for the fact that it comes with my job. I get it for free. So, because I need it for my work. Otherwise, I gave it up. And Zach, if you want me to give you like the clear roadmap to give up and cut off, Adobe Anonymous, I can help you wean yourself off Adobe.
Honestly,
it's an addiction, Zach, and you need to break your.
I don't want to relearn. I went from Final Cut. I knew Final Cut pretty well, and then everything switched to Adobe, and I knew Quark. I remember Quark, and so I was a whiz at Quark because our computer back in 2000 in the SUNY Purchase independent newspaper would continually crash, and so I had to basically almost every single newspaper that we put out. Thankfully it was a weekly or anyway, it wasn't regular, let's just say. Every newspaper we put out, I basically had to rebuild at least twice because the saving, remember you had to save on the zip disks and it would never save correctly and everything like that. And so like I became, by the end of like one semester, I became like I could put together an entire newspaper layout in like 30 minutes, as long as everything would process quickly enough, because like just redoing it over and over and over again. But yeah.
See, I went from Quark to InDesign. That's the transition that I made.
I still haven't really. I know vaguely. I can open up a file and I can make a change in InDesign, and that's basically about it. I got a friend who's a graphic designer who basically I go, Paige, can you fix it? She's like, okay.
I've been fortunate to when you have kids, you can use the student ID with Adobe, and I've been using the student ID. My daughter's been in school for 3 years, so
don't listen to Adobe.
Don't say anything. But my
was that
friends,
Mark Doyle?
like,
Okay, got it.
So you remember that?
No,
remember that whole button you clicked when you came into the program? Everything's being recorded. Just so you know.
Here's what's interesting about that. What's interesting about that is my friend's like, "Can we get your daughter's ID?" And because he was paying like $50-something a month, right? And he's like, "Your daughter's a student. Can we use her student ID to sign up for Adobe?" For I think it's $22 a month or something like that for students. And he's like, if you can get her ID, I'll pay for, we'll get 2 users and I'll pay for it. And I'll give you one of the users for free. And then I'll just pay the $20 a month. And because he was paying $50 anyway. So it's a win-win really for him. So I've been using it basically for free.
Yeah.
Nice. There you go.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I weaned myself off that program. It was a tough addiction, but I'm using open source, so using DaVinci, using all kinds of different things. So I've gotten very used to that. I mean, honestly, if you just need basic editing stuff, photop.com is a free website that does 90% of what Photoshop does. DaVinci is a great free video editor. I paid for the $300 for it just because you get it for life. You get free updates for life. It's a great thing.
Good. It's good.
So anyways, there's a whole lot of things, but if it works for you, then it works for you. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's all about workflow, and especially if you have to work with like other organizations that use Adobe, it's the industry standard.
That's the big problem is the rest of my team in my production, the company I work with, the nonprofit I work with uses Adobe. And so it's not necessarily a choice.
In your case, it's non-negotiable. You have to be with the industry standard.
Now what I got to do is start getting them. I wish I could get them to get like a nonprofit account. So we
there you go. Yeah.
But
yes,
that'll never happen.
Yes.
I can
never
never
discount.
Well, no, but they don't
discount.
But
non-profit rates. Yes.
I've tried to work it out, and it just doesn't work out because anyway, it doesn't work out. But the one thing I've been disappointed with the sales that they're, like Adorama's thing, it's everything's like 10%. You're like, oh, it's $300 off of this camera. It's a $3,600 camera. That's I mean, it's cool. It's greater than anything. I mean, like Nikon is like famously kind of stingy with sales and stuff like that. At least to me, it's been but I just had my 70-200 let's just say isn't reliable. And so I have to like replace it even before I do my big switch to Sony, which unfortunately I think I'm going to have to do. I have to get a 70-200 at least for like a couple months before like that whole thing happens. And it's like I've been trying to look for that deal now that I have the Nikon mirrorless cameras, and it's like, oh, the 70-200 mirrorless is I think $2,300 or $2,600 normally, and the sale brings it to $2,200, and you're like, cool.
Actually, the other thing is Printique. The Adorama's print company is having a very good sale too. I think they're doing 25% off of their print services, so that's a pretty good deal. Yeah. So
the Printique is actually it's usually what I use for my my prints, and
that's what I use them
affordable to begin with. So
on top of that, I mean, I use them exclusively for all of my stuff that I do on Etsy and eBay. So but if you don't use them, 25% off that's pretty kick-ass. You know what I mean? If you want to do some canvas prints, or you want to try something on metal, because they're so expensive, stuff on metal or acrylic. So if you want to take a shot at something small, getting that 25% off is the time to try something on metal or on acrylic.
Yeah, speaking of that, last year I took advantage of this. One of the photo book printing services was offering unlimited pages. So I took basically 2 years worth of Korean photos that I shot, of our family together, and built a book called, Our Time in Korea, which was like 200 pages, but I only paid like the rate for a 20-page book. So it was great. Cool. I mean, like, I think I saved like $200 per book by using that discount.
Nice.
So
I assume, and your family sued you later on for not getting consent while they were in
exactly,
Korea.
yeah. I'm still litigating with my son. He's got me up the ringer. You know, he's got the best lawyer taking me to court in Maryland and Korea.
Yep.
Both
Richard
jurisdictions
Leibowitz is on the team.
Oh man, I'm gonna end up owing him for like the next 20 years. It's crazy.
Well,
But-
Printique's books can be expensive. You know, I mean, doing a portfolio book, you know, a nice one, you know, it can be costly. You know, it could be up in that couple $100 range for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at B&H photos just to kind of see if they have any good deals. And here you go, Zach, just for you, save $200 on a $2,000 camera. Come on, man, that's just get your checkbook out now.
There you go.
But yeah, there aren't a ton of great deals. It really depends on, you know, what it is and what you want. I will say though, the deal that I've took advantage of, it specifically relates to my work, is Best Buy has a 14 terabyte hard drive for sale for $200, which is typically, you know, their MSRP is like $419, but I doubt anybody actually pays that. You can get it for about $250, $260 at like Amazon, but it is the cheapest price I found for that density of hard drive, that size of hard drive. And what I'm going to do is I bought 4 of them, and I bought a enclosure that allows me to put them into a RAID array, giving me essentially a 42 terabyte hard drive because I'm put in RAID 5. So it sacrifices one drive, but like I said, it gives me a little redundancy, which is what you really need in this world. But I'm coming up to the limit of most of my hard drives as I come up to the end of 2021. So my intent is to make this 42 terabyte hard drive, which will be, you know, for under $1,000, which is far cheaper than what you could pay for something similar.
Yeah, this box.
And then is that a box of hard drives?
This is just
loose hard
2
drives.
terabytes.
Nice.
Because the way I do my backups is terrible.
I have those too. I have those too somewhere. I have like sets off site all over the place.
Yeah.
It's shit everywhere.
Hey, you know, I mean, as long as you have it backed up in 2 places at minimum, and then 3 places ideally, you're good. And ultimately, what I'm going to do is like I've got like 2 smaller hard drives, which have my 2021 archive, and then I've got my 2020 archive and another multi-terabyte, multi-drive rated array. So 2021 will go from my 2 loose hard drives into this new master drive, and then everything beyond that will be built. But I always back up everything twice. So like you can't see, you can see a little bit in the background there, but I've got like every single hard drive I've ever owned, and I don't delete anything off of them, and they act as backups, layered backups. So I've got like 500 gigabyte hard drives from like 20 years ago. So yeah, I know that feeling, buddy. But
I will say though, like unfortunately, none of my cameras use SD now. Well, actually, no, I've got more than enough for the one camera I have that has an SD. But SanDisk is doing some pretty damn good deals. 256 gig card, Extreme Pro for $59, normally $100. Looks like most of them are at least like 30 or 40% off minimum, which is a pretty good deal. I mean, occasionally they'll be better along the year, but that one in particular, if I had the cash, I'd probably pick up a couple, because it would be nice to have, like, shooting 4K video, like, you know, you just go through cards like water. I have my but I have, of course, thank you Nikon for the extraordinarily expensive XQD cards that like are that like, wow, they got like, I think like they're like 100 what let's see,
hey, I feel your pain, buddy. CF Fast, man, or whatever, CF Express.
I just bought this
$600 for 512 gigabytes. What a ripoff. But
I just bought this SanDisk card reader for $80. It's compact flash and SD and lightning fast. Real cool. It's USB-C. So
I've got my CF Express card reader. I think that was $80 or $60 or something. So I had to buy a new card and a new card reader, and it's like,
that's cool to happen.
But I did want to go over some of your stuff, because again, this is all about showcasing your work, and let's get into that really quick. I'll start with you first, Mark. Let me pull up some of the photos you sent me, and then we'll just chat and talk through them.
My most recent stuff, anyway.
Yeah. I'm obviously, I know
it's all in the last like 2-3 months, maybe 4 months. Yeah.
You've
So
got
that's
you've got a long and illustrious career doing this work, and we're just kind of touching on some of the. Well, one second. Let me share the right screen. Okay. So yeah, obviously, we're just talking about some stuff you've recently done. So I pulled it up. Hopefully, you as the audience can see this is what we're looking at. But we'll start with this first one. Why don't you go ahead and talk through what we're looking at?
So that's a jazz legend, Chris Bodie, and that was the first show that I shot back at the Summer Stage for City Park Foundation. I've been shooting for City Park as one of their house photographers for the past 5 years. Obviously, COVID dampened that out in 2020, and they weren't sure how they would even do it in 2021, since everything was still kind of raging a little in June. But they were able to pull it off, and this was the first show that they did in June. I think it was June 29th. And everybody, it was decently attended, and everybody seemed to have a good time. And he's just an amazing trumpet player. I think Chris Bodie, should look him up. So that was my first gig back to live event or live music for Summer Stage, Central Park.
Was it live, like the first live event after COVID, or have you been doing live events?
I had done a couple
Post-COVID.
prior to that, but that was the first one I had done back. That was my first, my first client, event client that I was able to reclaim after COVID. There's still a couple that I haven't reclaimed.
Was it weird going back to shooting live events again after I'm guessing being on hiatus for a while?
Yeah, it was kind of strange because there were, obviously there weren't big tours, and Summer Stage was challenged in who they were able to get to open up the summer shows, but they were able to get him, and then it led to a bunch of other shows at Summer Stage, and then it led to some other shows for me with City Park Foundation at the Coney Island Amphitheater, which is another venue in Coney Island, Brooklyn, that they have. So I was able to do a few of those. So I was able to do about 12 or 14 shows for them, and it was all, you had to, the thing about it, what was odd, the way things have been changing and so fluid. When I first went in to do this show, you had to have the vaccination, which I had, but then, about 4 weeks into Summer Stage, or 5 weeks into Summer Stage, they started doing rapid testing, on site. And they hadn't done that on the first few shows. So it's really odd the way things have been going, as far as having vaccinations, wearing your mask, not wearing your mask, on-site rapid testing. It doesn't seem like there was one specific rule for everything that went on, or that everything that's going on in New York at the moment.
Yeah,
I'm sure they have the rapid testing at the QAnon and Trump rallies that you go to, right, Zach? That's why they don't have to wear the mask, because they have a rapid test, and so you don't need a vaccine.
Yeah. You start really noticing a lot more. I still remember one of the first anti-vax or anti-shutdown, whatever, rallies that have during COVID, and the light was just coming through just really nice on this guy, and I could just see all the spittle just coming out of his mouth right onto my camera, and I look at my lens and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do?
You just suck it up.
No, you don't.
Please just close your mouth, close your eyes.
Yeah.
Carry lots of sanitizer with you.
Yeah.
All right. So this other photo, is it also from the same event or
That's
from another?
Yeah, that's the same show. She came out into the audience, which was cool. Obviously, people in the corner you could see aren't wearing their masks. The idea was you didn't have to wear your mask. Again, it changed so rapidly that that was an early show in June, and people who were vaccinated were told they didn't have to wear their mask, and then it sort of changed later on. The interesting thing is, every photographer, I mean, I was one of the only photographers there for that day, but every photographer from that point on had to wear their mask in the pit, whether you were vaccinated or not. but some attendees didn't have to wear their mask. So I don't know. I don't understand all of it, but we abide by those rules if we wanted to shoot and make a living. So, we kept our masks on in the pit. But again, that was early, and you can see there's people in the corner there that didn't have their masks on. So I
Right.
guess they were vaccinated.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Exactly.
And here we got a shot of Hillary and some friends.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton and friends. So this was at the 92nd Street Y. I want to say about 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. So she came in. The woman in the middle wrote a book. She was one of Hillary's.
Yeah.
What's that?
Huma Abedin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She was one of her employees for many years. And so Hillary came to speak on her behalf, at the 92nd Street Y. And we were told that she was coming and that they were all going to have to keep their masks on through the entire shoot, which did not make Getty and AP happy because they were standing right alongside me when I was shooting this for the 92nd Street Y.
Right.
But then if you flip to the next shot of her, when they actually were doing the talk, she took her mask off, and I was able to get a clean shot of her, as was Getty. The interesting thing about it is Getty is not allowed, or any wire service, are not allowed to shoot inside the venue. They're only allowed to shoot the step and repeat out on the outside or the side of the venue because of union rules and house union rules. But they made a slight exception because she didn't take her mask off, and they were able to grab a couple of shots like I took of Hillary without her mask on.
Wow.
And again, this is only 3 weeks ago, so it's like very fluid. So, changing.
Well, you must have been pretty close, or at least have pretty good access to get this shot, or have a very good long lens. But
yeah, I think this was my 200 millimeter, and I was fairly close. So yeah.
Cool.
Live design. This is the live design. So this is a show. This is a trade show for lighting technology that's held every year in Vegas in November. And I've been shooting this show for the organizers since 2015. And obviously last year we did not have it. So they came back this year, and I was in Vegas last week for 6 days, 5 days, something like that, shooting their return, and very scaled down. About 40% of the vendors came in on the on the technology lighting side, and but it was really nice to see some of the vendors back, and the show at least going. Yeah. So so that was a step. That's a step in the right direction, at least. Right. Because because all of these companies that are at this show, feed the live entertainment world, whether it's theater, event, concerts. These are the lighting designers. These are the manufacturers. These are the guys that work, 12, 15, 16 hours a day, hanging the trusses up and making sure the lights are, properly hung, and all kinds of, safety measures are taken. This is that industry. Okay. So so that was really positive that this part of the industry came back in November. It's really important that it did. Yeah.
Yeah. Was this part of their show as well?
Yeah, so that's a Illuminati. That's a show that they do a morning show called the New Technology Breakfast, and a lot of companies come and present their technology, their new stuff. And this was a lighting designer. This was a show, I didn't know about this, but this was a show that the woman who actually designed these lighting jackets and clothing was actually on America's Got Talent, and that's sort of how she got discovered. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So they did. I remember
seeing a performance very with similar style, and it was just really blows you away what they can do with like synchronized and choreographed lighting and whatnot. So
yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Cool. And you went to shoot a baseball game,
and I was able to get back to some of the Met games, shooting for Mark Levine, who's the team photographer, and did some work for him, and was able to do a handful of games. Again, this was probably in, May or June. No fans with masks on, as you can see in the background there.
Yeah, it's like back to the old days.
Yeah, it's just very weird. Like the way, in May, you had 50, 60,000 people at a ball game with no masks on. And in October, you couldn't go into a bar without a mask.
Right.
I just don't get it. I don't understand really what was going on
It's,
there.
we were doing, when I got into here in July, we were doing no masks where I work. And then when the Delta variant became very hot, it came back masks on. So
yeah,
it's weird. It's a weird society, weird world we're living in right now. You guys
I mean,
got your booster yet?
Yeah, no, I haven't. You could see there's no one back there. I mean, no one has a mask on. Not even like, well, one person I think has one mask or two masks on, maybe out of the whole crowd. So,
very sporadic.
Yeah, very, very sporadic. So it was fun to get out there and shoot some games again. That was part of the whole, like, getting back into doing events and doing live stuff. And hopefully in 2022 it'll look more like this than it did prior. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. People can just get the vaccine and wear their mask, and we don't maybe get this thing under control.
We're almost out of the woods, I hope.
We said that. What did we say? We said that earlier this year, didn't we? We were almost out of the woods, right? Now we're back.
What did we just say? 800,000, I think, or we're just almost at 800,000 people. Yeah. Since the vaccine, we've lost 200,000 people, I think, and because people refuse to.
I don't know what that's about. I'm not sure.
All right, well, let's go over. Thank you for sharing that stuff, Mark. Glad to hear about some of your varied experiences. Let's go over something that you shot, Zach. This is a video that you produced for vsu.news, your website. I'm going to play this, and we'll kind of let it play for a little bit, and then we can kind of talk about what we're watching. Okay?
Sure.
Well, this is an event in America to remember the many lives lost from COVID-19. And so every night they're having a performer come out to basically share some light on this dark and gloomy memorial. So I was honored to be the first one to come out and just be able to share some light and get the music to just lift the spirits up in this trying time. To see a visual makes it even more real and more attainable. We don't really see the lives that's being lost daily on a daily basis. So just to see this visual, see this is actually the amount of people that have been losing their lives to this disease, it kind of makes you even want to do something even more about it, be even more precautious, be even more safe, and to be even more advocating about trying to stop this spread. Definitely by seeing these numbers, it can be really heartbreaking as well to see that so many people have lost their lives in the past couple of years, and the numbers is still going up. So it's really necessary to have this thing in your head, this knowledge and this remembrance, just to keep on playing, so that we be more active with trying to stop this.
So Zach, tell us a little bit about this story and how you kind of came about it, and what kind of drove you to, kind of create this piece of content about it.
So this actually was one of those just like weird coincidences. I didn't even know that this was a thing that was happening. And I was covering a rally in front of the Capitol. It was in front of the Capitol. Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was in front of the Capitol. That was basically that was about the treatment of the January 6th prisoners. And on my way out of town, I see this entire field by the memorial there, or by the monument there, and just a field of flags going by, and I'm like, oh, what is this? And so I pulled over and got out and just was taking some photos around, and this gentleman here, Christian Simmons, who is who sings at the National Opera in Washington, D.C., was brought out by basically the nonprofit that put on this memorial, where there's 670,000 small, as I say, over 670,000 small white flags in rows. And basically it's, at that time back in September, that was how many people who had died because of COVID. And so you could have gone, I believe, yeah, it's over. It was over in October, but you could go to a website and basically write your info, your family member or your friend's info on there, and somebody either would write it on a flag, or you could just go out there and with a black Sharpie write kind of write the name, and then write like just a brief little thing about the person who passed. And it was just one of those like really striking when you think about like you have like the AIDS quilt back in the, would have been the late 80s, early 90s, that was like traveling around the country. And then I remember as a kid seeing there was a Vietnam memorial, like the one that's relatively close to where this was, and they had like the pieces that were like traveling the country, and it just made me.
Zach, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I can't see your face, bud.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. One second.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening.
Weird.
Nothing. I didn't change anything, but okay. Anyway, so it just kind of like brought thought of that. It was just massive, like not surrounding, but it was like must have been several acres of flags just spread out in rows, and then like every once in a while you'd look down and see someone's name on one of the flags, and it just especially at that point in this year, we had kind of gotten to the moment where, oh, we think we're on the other side of this, and we're kind of like not, the national conversation almost had nothing to do with COVID, even though those numbers just kept chugging along. And that was amazing. I mean, considering like this guy, they were bringing opera singers and different performers out to basically build the stage of this thing, which that was, I think, kind of amazing to see.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And obviously you shot and photographed and filmed him without his consent and then published it without his consent. So obviously, no.
Yep.
So obviously you seem like a very willing and eager participant to talk about a very important cause. And so that was an awesome,
it was very cool
little story there.
Very, very, very well done.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you're living near DC, you can do it. Are they still have the flags up?
No, it went away. It was from September 17th and to October 3rd. But it's the other thing that's interesting is that, like, I mean, this is completely off the subject of that, is like I've discovered, because Twitter's standard video length is 2 minutes and 20 seconds, as long as you can post on there. Okay. And so like I've discovered that this is like that's actually the perfect like news segment length for me to edit, and I've actually become really good at editing a 2 minute and 20 minute long segment. Nice. And then just this past month, Twitter started a paid program. Like literally I pay for it. Yeah, I have Twitter Blue, and now it allows you, I think, up to 10 minutes to upload video. There's a bunch of other like weird stuff, or whatever. But it's actually kind of, it's been an interest. It's like kind of interesting how it like forms the process. But I mean, like between my account and the guy I work for, like we see, like this didn't get a lot of views, but whatever. But but like I got a couple thousand. But on the other hand, what an average news segment sees, I mean, like a piece I did earlier in the year on a character named Ali Alexander got, I think it's up to over 600,000 views. And so it's just like, oh, that's a CNN's nightly news segment, and it's getting a larger viewership than, and actually people are very clearly paying attention to it because they're clicking on it to watch it. And so it's one of those, like, I think it's just an interesting thing about the evolving nature of how, I think we really need to be viewing, like, outside of the box of just cable news and just outside of, nightly news or whatever, if we're doing, especially video, when you're doing video journalism. But yeah, anyway.
Oh, no doubt. People should be doing that.
How long have you been doing the Twitter Blue thing?
I did it like the first day that I signed up the first day. I don't know if I've noticed any difference. I actually haven't done much video work. So I haven't done really any video work since I signed up for it. So I actually haven't even tried to upload the 10-minute thing. And,
wow.
and it's,
I mean, how long when did you start using it? Like a few months ago, or? I think
it's been this month. I think it's signed up.
Oh, wow. So you just literally started using it. Okay.
Well, Twitter just started it.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, they sent me, or I don't know if they sent me something, or if I just like, oh, you're eligible. I don't know if it was an eligibility thing. Occasionally I get, with Facebook and Twitter, you get, access to try a beta thing or something like that. But I don't think that was it. I think that was pretty much everybody. But yeah, it's the other thing that's really cool about it. And I don't know how, maybe it's not cool. Maybe it doesn't actually, it's not beneficial, but you pay $49.99 a month, and then for many articles, like going to the Washington Post or going to New York Times or different things, or the Daily Beast or something, is that it has like a little Twitter Blue logo thing underneath the news article, and then you don't get advertisements, and you get access to it. So very clearly, there's a news, like the way that Facebook used to do, or it still does. I hope they're doing it better than what Facebook did, because but it's nice because you're going to their website, unlike what Apple and Facebook did, which is they brought news on their platform. So you never leave Facebook and you never leave Apple. Right. Twitter is literally just, you go to thedailybeast.com or whatever and read that article. So that's actually kind of cool. So.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask if I'd seen any sort of dividends from your expenditure. Had it made a difference? But obviously, it's too early to ask that.
Well, I mean, again, like not having to worry about ads, not doing that sort of thing, and the fact that it's contributing to the news, the fact that it is contributing to some level to the news sites that it's doing, and then the 10-minute thing. That's kind of all I really want. And I don't see ads. I don't see sponsor stuff as much on Twitter, which is also nice. So
okay. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this week's show. It's getting towards the 11 o'clock hour here on the East Coast in the evening. So let's call it an evening, guys, and get to bed so we can have wake up bright and early on Thanksgiving and go eat our turkey. Mark, where can people find out more about you and your work?
So all my social handles are all the same. Photos by Doyle, all straight across, and my website is markdoylephoto.com.
Okay. Zach?
On Twitter, on Twitter Blue, I'm verified. Everything under the blue. It's
paid for by Twitter, sponsored by Twitter. I want to see you wearing like the Twitter shirt.
I'm literally giving them money, so it's actually this is sponsored by Zach.
You're sponsoring Zach. Yeah.
Twitter is sponsored by and ZDRoberts is .com is my portfolio, and then you can go to visu.news to occasionally see whenever I remember to post things that I published there.
There you go. And as always, you can go to aroundthelens.com, find links to everything we've talked about and all our show notes and everything social we got going on. I'll be honest, it was a little disheartening to kind of post like the first episode in the year and see zero traction on the YouTube channel, just because, again, it's kind of like I have to get people reused to listening and watching the show. And, I got to do my own due diligence to actually advertise and promote things and, all the SEO type stuff. So, but we're going to get there. We're going to get Ghost in-house. We're going to have Zach in here at some point. We're going to have Mark down here at some point.
I'll be down there in March.
We're going to have you. I'm taking that to the bank.
I'm going to be down there.
I'm penning you in. I'm not even penciling. I'm penning you.
And you know what?
Serious that is.
Like I said, 9 o'clock is a good start, because if I'm shooting the trade show, I'll be done by 5 or 6. So 9 works great in person.
There we go. Mark Doyle, quote unquote, guaranteed appearance in March
In March.
on the show.
Early March.
Zach has no excuse being down in Virginia. He has to get up here at
Yes.
some point. No,
Yeah,
no
I'll
excuse.
be-
I'm not in South Korea anymore. You got to come over here. Although you could have
Gotta
came
see
over
the
while I was
digs,
in
man.
South Korea. You're always invited. You're also always invited over. Just
I want to see the
hey,
new digs, man. See the new digs, Dave.
come on down. Well, by the time you come down here in March, like the house is a mess. I'll be honest with you. We're still digging our way out of like our stuff from literally Mississippi, Korea, and like I got a lot of stuff from my mom's house in Florida here. So we're just digging ourselves out of our own stuff, and probably by March we should be at a good place. So you'll see it, and hopefully it's final form by then.
That's great.
But all right, all. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of the show. This has been Around the Lens, episode 252. I've been your host, David J. Murphy, and we are out.
Thanks for listening to Around the Lens. We hope you enjoyed the show. To continue the conversation, head on over to one of our social media outlets such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter. To support the show financially, consider donating to us via Patreon. For show notes from this week's episode and links to everything else we talked about, just go to our website, aroundthelens.com. Finally, if you or someone you know might be a good guest for the show, get in touch with us via email at info@aroundthelens.com.